Hello, it's Chef Andrew here to teach you how to make French macaroons, or macarons if you want to be proper about it. You're going to need very simple things. It's only going to be 4 ingredients that you're going to need to make the cookie part. You're going to need 71 grams of blanched almonds. You're going to need 117 grams of confectioner sugar. You're going to need 53 grams of granulated sugar. And then you're going to need 2 egg whites at room temperature. Along with that, you're going to need any food coloring if you want to color your macaroons. Macaroons are very colorful. I'm going to be using a red dye because I'm going to be making a strawberry filling for these. So, before we get to mixing, I want to teach tearing real quick because it's very important for this recipe. Since it's baking, we're using exact measurements here. Baking is very, very precise. So you're going to need a scale along with your equipment. The other piece of equipment you're going to need is your food processor. If you don't have that, you're honestly really going to need it in order to make this recipe because you're going to need to crush up your almonds. But these are the really 2 basic pieces of equipment that you're going to need. The mixer that I use later on you can do by hand if you really wanted to, but I don't want to spend that much time on mixing. But for tearing and for scaling, you're going to need a digital scale. Is the best. Usually has 2 buttons, a power button and a tear button, and a unit button. So once you have your scale, you're going to turn it on. Once it's stable enough, it'll show you a 0 or multiple zeros, and then we're going to want to change the unit of measure to grams, and you'll do that by clicking the unit button until you find the G somewhere around the 0. Okay. From there, we'll put our equipment that we're going to measure into on top of it. Now, you're going to notice on the scale that there's some number shows up. Well, that's going to skew our measurements if we're not proper on this. So we've got to make sure we zero it by clicking the tear or the 0 button again. Once the 0 shows back up, now the scale is taking the bowl into account. And now we can measure our ingredients, like our 71 grams of blanched almonds. So I'll pour my almonds in here, make sure I have 71 grams. I do have 71 grams. Again, I have measured everything and practiced my mise en place pretty well. Set that aside. Once I've measured all my ingredients, I really don't need my scale anymore, so I'm going to set that aside. Now, we're going to take our almonds for this recipe, and we're actually going to put them into the food processor, along with our 117 grams of confectioner sugar. This is about 1.5 cups or 1 2/3 cups of confectioner sugar. Or even powdered sugar would work just fine. Confectioner sugar just has added cornstarch to it to help with the finer consistency. Now we're going to process this for 1 minute, and then we're going to come right back. Alright, so I've processed for 1 minute. We're going to take a bowl that we're going to pour our ingredients into, and a sifter, a very fine sieve. Alright, we're going to take our powdered sugar and almond mixture, and we're going to pour this right into our sieve. I want to make sure we get all of this, so use a rubber scraper. And we're just going to use our rubber scraper, and we're just going to stir and let the almonds and the powdered sugar get sifted, basically. Now we're most likely going to need to process this one more time. What we're looking at is the remnants that are in the sifter. We only want about less than 2 tablespoons left over in order to make sure this is correct. Okay. See how we're doing here. Stuff's still flowing through, so we're looking good. Now the powdered sugar will fall through pretty easy compared to the almond granules. Alright, we're going to need to sift this one more time, or process it one more time. So let's put this back in the processor. If you have to do this again, you're going to process for 1 minute. Okay, so I'm going to process this and I'll be right back. Alright, I've processed it again for 1 more minute. So we're going to take this and put this into our sieve. And again, we're just going to sift it. We want a very fine product here because it's a very delicate product. So large pieces of almond could really destroy the delicacy of our structure for these. Now these are egg white cookies. We're not using a flour. The almonds are here for the flavor because macarons are almond flavored meringue cookies. Okay, I've got roughly about 2 tablespoons left over of the almonds. Okay, there's no way for me to process this down any further without adding more almonds, but we're looking really good. So if I have 2 tablespoons left in a sieve, we're just going to get rid of that. And this is going to be our almond and confectioner sugar mixture for our meringue cookies. Okay, I'm going to set this aside and I'll be right back to teach you the second part of the meringue cookie. Alright, on to the second part of the meringue cookie. We're going to need our 2 room temperature egg whites. It is best at room temperature. They create a better volume if they're at room temperature. If they're cold, you're going to get very small bubbles, a small amount of the whipped egg whites when they're done. Okay, so room temperature is the best. Along with that, we're going to add in our granulated sugar. Now normally you would measure or add in your sugar when you're whipping your egg whites a little at a time. But for this, we want them combined all together at once. You're going to take your whisk or your beater attachment to your balloon whisk and you're just going to mix it to kind of start the process. It also helps break up the stringy bits of the albumin of the whites, okay, and get that sugar really well incorporated. Okay, once it's pretty well incorporated, we're going to put this onto the machine. Okay. If you don't have a machine like this, you'll have to do it by hand. It'll take a little bit longer, but it'll be worth it. We're going to bring this up, and then I'm going to turn it on high for, or sorry, on medium for 2 minutes. And we'll be back. Alright, it's been 2 minutes since I put it on medium. We're now going to put it onto medium-high for 2 more minutes, and I'll be right back for that. Alright, it's been on medium-high for 2 minutes. I'm now going to take it up to high for 2 more minutes, and then we'll come right back to that. Alright, it's been mixing on high for 2 minutes. We now have a really good, almost solid white mixture. We're at semi-stiff peaks at the moment, so it's not quite done, but right here is where we're going to add our food coloring. Now it's very important that when we add food coloring to for the meringues, we don't want to collapse it. So we don't want to use liquid food coloring that you normally get at grocery stores. We use these for coloring eggs, things like that for around Easter time. Do not use these. What you want to use is a paste. Alright, they usually come in little containers like this with a foil top. You use a toothpick to kind of measure out your coloring, or they come in little bottles that you kind of squirt in. But it has to be a paste, all right, or a gel, all right. We don't want to corrupt our delicate meringue structure of the egg whites. So I'm going to use a red coloring because I'm making a strawberry filling to go into my cookies. So I'm just going to take a toothpick, mix it up here, and I'm going to cover about half the toothpick with the food coloring, and then I'm going to add this into my egg whites, and I'll kind of rub it onto the wire whip itself. Okay, once that is done, you're going to mix this on high for 30 more seconds, or until you have stiff peaks. All right, stiff peaks are when we dip something into it, pull it out, and it stays in that peak form. Okay, just pointing straight up. All right, and we'll be back as soon as I have stiff peaks. All right, so I whipped these for about an extra 45 seconds. They weren't quite stiff at 30 seconds, but as you see, I'm getting a stiff peak. It's holding its shape. That's where we want it to be. So I'm gonna clean this off. Already really tastes good. And we're going to take our almond and confectioner sugar mixture, and we're just going to put this right on top. And now we're going to fold. Okay, that's where we take our spatula and we go down the side, go across the bottom, come back up, and kind of repeat that motion very gently and very slowly. We don't want to burst all those tiny bubbles that we whipped into our egg whites. Depending on how you're doing this, it could take anywhere from 30 to 40 strokes of folding to get this fully incorporated until you have what looks like almost similar to silly putty, you know, like lava type mixture where it'll bubble over, it looks like, but it's nice and smooth. Okay. Make sure you're getting everything. You're scraping the bowl and you're gently folding. Okay, we don't want a dough. We're looking for a smooth, putty-like lava texture. Okay, we don't want to ruin all those little bubbles, so we're going to take our time here. Alright, this also makes sure we get all the dry ingredients incorporated correctly. All the color is evened out, so we don't have any patches of red or whatever color you're using, but it's all uniform color. Okay, it's looking really nice. Again, make sure you're scraping everything and you're getting everything incorporated. Don't want to waste any ingredients, but again, this is also an exact science, especially when it comes to baking macaroons. We want to make sure that we have all our ingredients accounted for. Missing one ingredient or missing one step could ruin your macaroons. Okay. Alright, we have a nice smooth mixture. I don't see a lot of lumps. I see lots of air bubbles, which is what we're going for. It's going to feel almost a little gooey. Okay, but you're looking at something that will somewhat hold its shape, but also start flattening itself out. Okay, and smooth itself out, because we want a smooth cookie on the top. Okay. Alright, I'm looking good here. Alright, so I'm going to transfer this into a bag that I have ready. I'm going to prep my bag. Again, a 3/4 inch tip on it. We're going to fill it up and then we're going to pipe it out. At this point, if you haven't already, at this point you should probably be preheating your oven to 350 degrees. Let's go ahead and transfer this. Now this is a mixture you can't have sitting around. You need to use this batter right away. You can't save this batter for the next day. Otherwise you lose your structure. So make sure you bake all of it or use all of it somehow. If you really wanted to, you could also make a pancake or waffle batter and just add this or fold this right into it. You'll have a fluffier, crispier waffle or pancake. But as you saw, we used no flour. We just used egg whites for our structure. Okay. Alright, so now I have my bag here. I have a baking sheet ready to go. If you don't have a parchment, if you don't have a Silpat, it's one of these little rubber dealies. These are really nice. This one actually comes with little macaroon circles, or small circles, or forever cookies or whatever. But I'm going to use it as my gauge. So you want about 1.5 inches to 1 3/4 inch cookie size. So we're just going to pipe this. We're going to straight up and down. We're going to press until it almost hits the outer circle, and then we're just going to circle. Okay? So press down, circle to break it. Press down, circle to break it. See, they're almost as big as a circle as on this mat. We're going to put these about 1 inch apart. So as you can see, one small batch using 2 eggs can actually make quite a bit. Of cookies. That one I screwed up on. It's been a while since I've done this. I'm not much of a baker. I prefer hot foods. Alright, look at that. I could probably get 2 or 3 more cookies out of that, but did pretty well. Alright, now from here, this is a really important step. This recipe does not call for it being, let it just sit here and whatnot. What we do need to do though is we're going to take the pan and we need to slam it a few times on our counter to help it settle and just kind of smooth out. This makes sure that if there's any bubbles, you can actually see them. I'm not sure if you can. A couple of these had big bubbles come up and pop. That's what we want. We don't want large bubbles to be forming inside our batter. Okay. Now, these will go into an oven at 350 degrees for 13 minutes or until they're set, and we're going to rotate it halfway through. Okay, this is very important, especially if you don't have a convection oven. Most ovens at homes are convection ovens, and they don't circulate air very well. Okay, so 13 minutes at 350, rotating halfway through. We'll come right back as soon as I get these out of the oven. Alright, while my cookies are baking in the oven, I'm going to teach a filling real quick. We're just going to do a quick chantilly cream that we flavor with strawberries preserves. So I have a cup of heavy cream. Basically chantilly cream is just whipped cream. It's the fancy name for it. Into the whipped cream, we're actually going to put 3 tablespoons of a homemade strawberry preserve. Alright, we need something that can hold its form in a preserve or a jelly or a jam of some type, because of the pectin inside the fruit and inside the mixture that you create with it will help stabilize the form a little bit. Alright, so we're going to use 3 tablespoons of a strawberry jam that I made here. Make sure it's nice and soft if you had it in the fridge. If it's not soft enough, it won't incorporate very well into the chantilly cream. So I'm going to take my cup of cream and I'm going to put it in a mixer, and we're going to whip it on high until I have about semi-stiff peaks, and then we're going to add in our raspberry preserves. Okay. I'll be back when I have those peaks. Alright, so I've got my semi-soft peaks, so I'm going to go ahead and add in my 3 tablespoons of fresh strawberry preserves. Okay. And then I'm actually going to also add 1 tablespoon of powdered sugar. Just a little bit additional sweetness there. And then I'm going to mix this on high for about a minute or 2 until I have very stiff peaks. Alright, and I'll be right back. Now, just make sure that when you're doing this, you get stiff peaks, so you don't want to overmix your cream. Okay, so I've got my stiff peaks. Looks like it's going to hold very, very well. I'm just going to mix it gently for a few times here. I want to make sure that all the cream got incorporated correctly into the mixture. I don't want any white streaks within this. The preserves, as you can see, the preserves turned it a nice light pink color. It'll show up better once we get the cookies all done. Alright, so I'm just going to set this aside and let it chill until our cookies are out of the oven and they have chilled or cooled properly in order for us to build them. Alright, when I come back, we'll be able to build our cookies. Alright, I am back and my macaroons have cooled completely. I've got my filling ready to go. There's a couple things you could do, by the way. You can either have it like this, just a normal flat. You just take a little bit of your filling and just kind of put it in there, and then you would take another cookie and you would just sandwich them. Okay, and you would just have your macaroon ready to go. Okay, if you like more filling in your cookies, another thing you could do is, before putting your filling on it, you could take your thumb and you can just kind of gently break and put a dimple inside, and you can fill it up with a little bit more filling this time. And then take your cookie and close it up. Okay, so that's it. That's all you need to do in order to make French macarons. Alright, you can change the colors, the flavors. It's up to you, but as long as that almond meringue is there, you have your cookie. And final shot of my completed cookies. Alright, the batch that we made for the meringue cookies makes, as you can see, 12. Alright, so that's 1 full dozen from that recipe. The filling we made would actually do enough for 4 batches of meringue cookies. So keep that in mind when you're making these. If you want to make a lot, then definitely make the same amount of filling, but make your meringue cookies 4 times the amount.